Why Shakespeare is important to us today.
Though no birth records exist, church records indicate that a William Shakespeare was baptized in Stratford-upon-Avon on April 26, 1564. From this, it is believed that he was born on or near April 23, 1564. William most likely attended the Kingston School, which taught reading, writing, and the classics. He married Anne Hathaway in 1582 in Worcester and had 3 children shortly after their marriage.
How did the son of the failing Glover make it into the theater? The strong presence of legal situations in his plays and poems has led to the recurrent speculation that he worked in the office of a local attorney. His work would have put food on the table and would have fed his appetite for new words and fanciful metaphors. By 1592, there is evidence he earned a living as an actor and a playwright in London and possibly had several plays produced. He spent most of his time writing and acting. By 1599, he and his business partners built their own theater on the Thames River, which they called the Globe. With the exception of Romeo and Juliet, his first plays were mostly histories. After 1600, he wrote the tragedies Hamlet and King Lear and Othello. Later, he also wrote several tragicomedies, including The Tempest.
In Romeo and Juliet, there is an ongoing feud between the Montague and Capulet families. Romeo, a young man from the Montague house, and his friend Benvolio attend a masked party at the Capulet house. He falls in love with Juliet from the moment he sees her. Juliet's cousin, Tybalt, recognizes him and disturbs the party, so Romeo quietly approaches Juliet and confesses his love for her. Afterwards, Juliet speaks her thoughts on the balcony, and Romeo appears and swears that he will be her true love. Benvolio gets into a fight with Tybalt. Romeo arrives later and resists to fight, but becomes angry over his friend's death. He fights Tybalt, kills him, and then decides to flee. That night, Romeo goes to see Juliet, and they promise to marry. The friar gives Juliet a potion that will make her look dead for a few days. He promises to send Romeo a letter explaining the situation, but fails to do so. Juliet drinks the potion that night to fake her suicide. When Romeo's servant brings him news about Juliet's death, he is heartbroken. He goes back to Verona, buys a poison, and decides to commit suicide as well. Romeo arrives at the Capulet vault and finds Juliet. He drinks the poison, gives her a kiss, and dies. Juliet then wakes up and sees Romeo's dead body and decides to take her own life as well.
A perfect modern-day example of Romeo and Juliet is the movie Warm Bodies. It doesn't get much more star-crossed than a zombie and a human falling in love. Warm Bodies focuses on the forbidden love between zombie R for Romeo and the woman he can never be with, Julie, for Juliet. R also has a friend named Marcus, which sounds a lot like Mercutio.
The first surviving copy we have of Shakespeare's Hamlet is an entry in the Stationer's Register titled The Revenge of Hamlet, Prince Denmark, as it was later acted by the Lord Chamberlain and his servants, and was dated July 26, 1602. When the play begins, Hamlet's tragedy has already begun. His father, the king, whom he loved very much, has just died. His mother, the queen, has hurriedly gotten remarried to his uncle, who is now king. This incestuous marriage occurs a mere 2 months after King Hamlet's death, and Hamlet sarcastically jokes that guests came for King Hamlet's funeral and then stayed for Gertrude and Claudius's wedding, the same food even being used for both meals. Hamlet is deeply troubled by the combination of all of these events. The ghost of the former king appears to Hamlet and tells him that he was murdered by Claudius, so Hamlet immediately swears to avenge his father's death. He organizes a play to be performed that contains scenes that are very similar to the way in which Claudius murdered the king, to make him feel guilty and perhaps even confess his sins. Claudius storms out, and Hamlet later finds him, but spares his life because he is praying. However, later on, Hamlet finds out about Claudius's plot to have him killed, but Claudius's plan falls through. Hamlet then manages to finally kill Claudius. Gertrude unknowingly drinks poisoned wine and dies as well, and the whole ending is a giant bloodbath, which is the case in most of Shakespeare's tragedies.
Like so many Disney movies, The Lion King was inspired by a collection of different mythologies, but mainly by Hamlet. Scar killing his brother Mufasa to become king is taken directly from this play. The characters Timon and Pumbaa also serve as fairly obvious substitutes for Hamlet's friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
In the opening of the play, Macbeth and Banquo, King Duncan's generals, come across 3 witches on the moorland that prophesy that Macbeth will become the Thane of Cawdor and then King of Scotland. Banquo's prophecy is that his heirs will become kings. The sisters disappear before the generals can find out any more. Duncan later makes Macbeth Thane of Cawdor, confirming the first of the prophecies and encouraging Macbeth's greed and selfish ambition. Macbeth later becomes king as well, and the rest of the play is about his tragic spiral downwards as a result of his selfishness and pride.
The tragedy of Julius Caesar is believed to have been first performed between 1599 and 1601. In the Elizabethan era, plays were the most popular form of entertainment, and new entertainment was always in high demand. Julius Caesar was most likely the first play performed in the Globe Theatre. The drama is set in 44 BC in ancient Rome. Julius Caesar had a great leadership quality to him that the people of Rome loved. He was offered the crown 3 times for his accomplishments at war and his leadership skills. However, he refused it each time. This and other attributes caused some of the people of Rome, including Caesar's close friends, Brutus and Cassius, to think he was not deserving of his power and title, so they plotted to kill him. After they succeeded, great turmoil spread throughout Rome. This resulted in the people who favored Caesar for king to go to war with the people who sided with Brutus.
Shakespeare left behind 38 plays. Over 400 feature film-length and TV show adaptations of his work have been produced. He also holds the title of being the most filmed author in any language. Shakespeare was also an actor who performed many of his own plays before Queen Elizabeth I and before James I, who was an enthusiastic patron of his work. Shakespeare may have lived in the 16th century, but his work still resonates with us today in quotes, TV shows, and modern movies. He truly was the king of literature.